We're here joined in Sarasota by Kevin Guthrie, who's our Director of Emergency Management, head of our Florida National Guard, Jim Eifert. We also have Department of Transportation Secretary Jared Perdue. We have Sheriff Kurt Hoffman, and then we have Ed McCrane as well to talk about final stages of preparations for what is going to be a really, really significant hurricane that's going to impact the state of Florida. I think as many of you know, this storm, Hurricane Ian, is now located about 200 miles southwest of Key West. It's moving north at 12 miles per hour. It has passed or is in the process of passing Cuba. It is a Category 3 storm, which is a major hurricane, and the sustained winds are 125 miles per hour. We've been preparing different things throughout the state. We've been working with the locals. I think if you go back 48 hours and you looked at where that track was going, even though we said don't get wedded to where that eye is, you know, they had the eye of the storm arriving someplace in northern Florida in the Big Bend region. Then that track has shifted consistently eastward. As we went to bed last night, the anticipation was a landfall in the Tampa Bay area. And now the models this morning, both the European model, the American model, the ICON, all have it coming into the Sarasota region. The 11 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center, they revised their guidance to see it south of Tampa Bay into this region. Now, that's still not set in stone. I'd say anyone on the Gulf Coast prepare for impacts, and that was true even when it was going to make landfall places further north. We knew that there would be big storm surges as far south as Collier County. So that's what we're dealing with here, though, is continued preparations, heeding the warnings and the evacuation orders that we have from our local officials. And you're going to hear from that some additional guidance here in Sarasota. People remember Charlie was earmarked to go into Tampa Bay. It turned south and impacted places, particularly like Charlotte County. This is a little bit different than that because it is a big storm. It is going to kick up a lot of water as it comes in, and you're going to end up with really significant storm surge. You're going to end up with really significant flood events. And this is the type of storm surge that is life-threatening. Another factor that they're forecasting now is it makes landfall somewhere. Let's say it's in Sarasota County. Most of the forecasts have it slowing down to almost a crawl. And what that means is it's going to dump an inordinate amount of rain. So that could be Sarasota, could be a little bit inland. Obviously, the impact could be somewhere down this coast in different ways. There's still time for it to wobble. But I think most of the forecasts are anticipating a landfall, then a slow to almost a crawl, which is going to put a lot of saturation in the ground. So this is going to be a major water event, both in terms of the storm surge and in terms of the flooding. Evacuation orders have been issued up and down the Gulf Coast of Florida, including here in Sarasota County. The issue with this is if you are in one of these low-lying areas and you have the potential for 10, 15 feet of storm surge, that can absolutely be life-threatening. Those orders, I think, are not taken lightly. I think that that's what is the best to keep you safe. And you don't need to evacuate to another state. You don't need to evacuate hundreds of miles away. The key is to get to high ground and be in a safe structure. And I know here in Sarasota, they have shelters that are open that can do friends and family in the area. If you are going to go somewhere in other parts of the state of Florida, we're advising that you can go south and then across Alligator Alley. Southeast Florida seems to be doing better. This track may end up taking it all across I-4. It could take it in other areas. But the most important thing with the evacuation is just get to the higher ground, get to safe structure. It doesn't mean you have to be in a place where there's no storm or where you're not going to face anything, because in Florida we have structures that can deal with these hurricanes. It's hard to deal with 10 feet of water, and that's really what is underlying the evacuation notices. If you're in the barrier islands, if you're in some of the places that are susceptible to that, you are in risk. FDOT and FHP are coordinating about the flow of traffic. As of now, on 75 out of here, it's moving. We have had increased folks on the road starting yesterday, heading eastbound on Interstate 4. I think you're going to continue to see it pick up on I-75 now that the track has shifted further south into this part of the state. FDOT is prepared and FHP are prepared to open the shoulder to emergency use for evacuations. But that will happen once the sustained traffic goes under 40 miles an hour. I've not reached that point yet, and so when you do, then they will do it. The people sometimes ask, are you going to do all lanes on both sides one direction? FDOT has studied that over like 10 years, and they've determined that's not the most effective way to do it. You need people to be able to get into the storm for supplies and rescue and whatnot. So the emergency lanes, that is going to be the first step. Of course, we've suspended tolls in the affected areas, and we will keep those suspended, and we will expand that as need be. Fuel is still being provided. I know there's a lot of people out getting fuel. We've seen lines, but you still see they're going to keep providing that until it's no longer safe to do so. And then, of course, once the storm hits and passes, that's going to be a priority to clear the roads so that we're able to get the fuel back to the gas stations. People should anticipate losing power. Just when you have a storm of this magnitude, that's what happens. It knocks down trees, it knocks down power lines. So when you're making preparations, just be prepared to be able to make do without having consistent power. And that may be a matter of days. It may be more than just a few days. It really depends on the intensity of the storm, and it depends on how much structural damage is done to the underlying infrastructure that powers our state. Of course, we have, I think we've got over almost 30,000 folks that are now stationed in various companies that are going to be ready to go and work to get the power back on once the storm has passed. We also know that people who are evacuating may not necessarily want to do a shelter. Maybe they don't have family. Maybe they want to do a hotel room. Well, Visit Florida has partnered with Expedia to launch an emergency accommodation page. Anyone who's been ordered to evacuate can use this page to find available accommodations in other areas of the state. Just go to expedia.com/Florida, expedia.com/Florida. We have probably more than 2.5 million people right now that are under some form of an evacuation order. So we understand there's going to be a need to use everything at our disposal, not just shelter, not just friends and family, but also available hotel rooms. Know your evacuation zone. You're going to hear another announcement here in a minute from Sarasota. Floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare. Floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare. If you go there, you can determine where your evacuation zone is. It's different from the FEMA flood maps. This is something that is impacting whether you should evacuate in the case of a storm, and that is what your local emergency managers are relying upon. Don't leave your pets behind. We need to make sure we're taking care of the pets. There are pet-friendly shelters. There's information about planning for taking care of your pets in the times of disaster at floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare, floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare. We have shelters open here in Sarasota and surrounding counties, and that's something that's going to be very, very important as the next day or two goes on. And if you want to see where the available shelters are in your area or even in other parts of Florida, you can go to floridadisaster.org/shelters, floridadisaster.org/shelters. We are continuing to forego tolling, and we may expand that as need be. We have 35 school districts that have announced closures, and more may happen as the track becomes more certain. If you want the latest up-to-date information on schools, go to fldoe.org/storminfo. That's fldoe.org/storminfo. We have 5,000 Florida National Guardsmen that are activated and that are staging and that will be ready to go and help people who may need help once this storm hits. We've got another 2,000 from neighboring states. We have urban search and rescue teams that are activated, and we have another 3 that are on standby should their services be required. Florida Fish and Wildlife, they're activated, they're standing by, both in terms of vehicles that they would use to traverse water, as well as aviation assets. That's all tools will be at the disposal. We have FHP with 12-hour shifts and additional state troopers that have already been mobilized to the Gulf Coast of Florida. And of course, we now have Coast Guard. Who's in the Coast Guard at the EOC right now?
Admiral McPherson.
Yeah, we have Admiral McPherson is at the EOC in Tallahassee, so we appreciate the Coast Guard being there and offering support if need be. Long-term care facilities, as of now, 100% are reporting backup power in the form of generators. I know there's been evacuations of high-risk seniors, and that is the right thing to do. At the same time, there's a lot of these facilities that may not be in a flood zone or may not be in a zone A that they will be in there. They probably are going to lose power, and so having that is very important when you have medically dependent individuals. The entire state is under a state of emergency. As you see the track, there may be portions of the state that don't see any major impacts. Clearly, if it barrels into Sarasota and then goes out into the Atlantic Ocean off the east coast of Florida, probably not going to have significant impacts in northwest Florida, whereas there had been tracks just a couple days ago that had taken it all the way into places like Okaloosa and have at least tropical storm force winds all the way until it exits the state of Florida, wherever that may be. We've authorized emergency refills of medication and prescriptions for 30 days. We've suspended weight restrictions, and we've waived those policies so that commercial trucks can bring in as much supply as they can to make sure that the folks here have what they need. We have received at the state level 550 requests for assistance from local counties. We fulfilled 495 and are on the way to do more. Some of those requests can only be fulfilled once the storm hits, and those will be as well. We were able to meet with the leadership here in Sarasota County, and we stand by ready to do additional assistance once that is requested. We have done over 200 medical professionals to county special needs shelters. We have 120 that are in surrounding counties in the Tampa Bay area. On top of that, we have staging areas, and as the storm track has changed, Kevin and his people have migrated some of the preparations and the staging further south in the state. When you had the eye of the storm looking like it would go north of Tampa, that's different than when you see it coming now south of Tampa. So still have support in Tampa and in north of that, and I would say that just because the eye is no longer on Tampa Bay, one little wobble can change that, and I think you're absolutely going to see major impacts in the Tampa Bay region, regardless of whether the track continues to go south or not. Generators and pumps are staged to help with flooding. Pre-landfall fluid and water is staged to help with counties that may be in need. So please continue to monitor the local weather reports. Please listen to your local officials and the updates that they provide, and make sure that you are prepared and you finish your preparations. And if you are in an evacuation zone where you've been called upon to evacuate, that you heed those warnings and do what you need to do to protect yourself and to protect your loved ones. We want everybody to be safe. We want to make sure that they get through this in one piece. There's going to be damage, there's going to be flooding, there'll be wind damage, but those are things that we can fix. It's not necessarily easy to do, but we can do it. You can't unring the bell if someone is in a very hazardous situation and then ends up dying because of a really nasty hurricane and storm surge. So please heed the warnings. We want everyone to be safe. We want everyone to get through this, but we appreciate everything everybody's been doing across the board, across the state of Florida, to step up when we have these things that bear down on us. And I think you've seen at the local level in particular, they've got some really, really strong emergency management personnel. This has been a very difficult thing to track. It's gone one direction or the other, and they've responded very quickly as new data has come in. Okay, Kevin Guthrie, why don't you come up and give an update for DEM?
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor said, we have over 500 missions that we're filling presently. I think the current number is around 550. We continue to send ambulance strike teams, oxygen technical communication services statewide, search and rescue teams. We have additional search and rescue teams standing by. I was on the phone with 3 other states this morning, again, checking on the availability of additional resources in Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee. They are all committed to sending us whatever it is that we need. Residents should and can expect power outages. That is going to happen. If you're a medically dependent resident, and that's a term that was coined right here in Sarasota County by the leadership here. If you're a medically dependent resident and you depend on electricity, then you need to start seeking shelter now. All right, go to a friend or a family member or seek shelter. I'll let Ed follow up more on that. During previous hurricanes, we've seen certainly situations where communications go down. I highly encourage you to develop a family communications plan on how you're going to do that after the storm hits when you do not have communications. At this point in time, obviously, there's a lot of people running to gas stations. We want to encourage citizens and residents to keep their tanks half full. When you get to that half full mark, go ahead and start seeking to fill it up. That shortens the amount of time at the lines at the gas stations. It also conserves some of the bulk issues as we have somebody put 30 gallons of gas into a tank. Same thing goes for electrical cars. Keep those batteries at 50% or more. Make sure you have cash on hand. Make sure you go into the ATMs, and as ATMs and credit card services need power to function. So again, we've already talked about we're going to lose that capability. Plants, things around your house, yard furniture, go ahead. If it can, if it's out there on the lawn, go ahead and get it in. Make sure it's secure inside of a garage or some other area. The last thing that I will talk very briefly about is many people are having trouble navigating websites and whatnot. There's so much information out there. Where can you go to get the best information? I know Ed is going to mention the local call-in center number here, but for us at the Florida Division of Emergency Management, we do have the SAIL line, the State Assistance Information Line, up and running, and I will give you that 1-800 number. If you have any information as it relates to the state, you can contact us at 1-800-342-3557. I will say that again. It's 1-800-342-3557. You can also follow us at the Division's Facebook page and on Twitter at FLCERT. That's FLSERT. Governor, again, thank you for your leadership on this.
Okay. All right, Ed McCrane, Sarasota County EM Director.
Thank you, Governor.
Yep.
Good afternoon. Here at the Sarasota County Emergency Operations Center, we continue to monitor the path of impacts. We really appreciate the support of Governor DeSantis and Kevin Guthrie from the Florida Division of Emergency Management. Great partners that just being here tells us that we have that support. They continue to work together with our school, law enforcement, municipal partners to get the word out. We previously evacuated level A. That's in the process today, which is all the red on our map, all barrier islands, low-lying areas prone to flooding, which includes mobile homes, RVs, and those that live on boats. And that mobile home park can be anywhere in the county. If you look at the Sarasota County evacuation map, you'll see red shapes throughout the map. Those are mobile home parks, and they are part of level A. Because of the change in the track and the information we received from the National Hurricane Center and the Weather Service this morning, we are now adding level B. At this point, right now, we're adding level B, which will encompass a few more areas of the county adjacent to those level A red areas. To find the nearest evacuation center, visit scgov.net/beprepared, or you can call 311. All 12 evacuation centers for general population are open. We began accepting evacuees at noon today. And we have 2 medical dependent. At this point, the medical dependent process is not as it would be during blue sky. You need to call 311 so we can do a quick triage and get you into the system. Don't go in and try to fill out the form and expect it to be acted on quickly, as we're already in the process of moving people. Evacuation centers, though, like the governor said, should be your last resort. They're the lifeboat. You should go to friends or family if you can. And you don't have to go hundreds of miles. You can go tens of miles. You can choose east-west routes like 72, 70, 64, or like the governor said, go south on 75 and seek refuge down there. Our buses are serving at the transportation rally points. We will end those services tonight at 8 p.m. or once winds reach 35 sustained. The bridges will remain open for vehicular traffic, but once winds get to 35, the U.S. Coast Guard will issue a notice that the bridges will be closed to marine traffic. And let me emphasize that. There's a lot of misconception about that. We do not leave the bridges in the up position to close them. They are down, locked, the equipment is removed, the bridge tender leaves, and law enforcement may be placed there to prevent people from going back west over the bridge unless they have an emergency situation. The utilities will be shutting off water service to all residents and businesses located on Siesta Key after 5 o'clock this evening. City of Sarasota may be doing the same on Lido and that area, so keep that in mind. Solid waste collection services have been canceled. The landfill is closed. We asked our community continue to be smart, make their preparations now, and follow evacuation notices when issued. If you're going to an evacuation center, eat before you go. Bring your emergency kit, including bedding, and bring a flashlight, toiletries. You're going to get 20 square feet of space there. Our teams there, along with the school district partners, will get you in situated. You can bring a pet. Every single evacuation center in Sarasota County is pet friendly. We have teams there trained. Our school partners, we decided that after Hurricane Irma because everybody came to every shelter with pets. So we are prepared for that now. Continue to monitor local media, county social media, and please register for emergency notifications by going to alertsarasotacounty.com.
Okay. All right, we also have from the Department of Transportation, our Secretary, Jared Perdue.
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor mentioned, we have suspended tolls to aid in evacuations in the impacted areas, specifically Alligator Alley and many of the toll facilities in the Tampa region. We will continue to monitor the path of the hurricane, and as needed, we can expand those toll suspensions. We've begun locking down and fortifying all of our construction projects. Our coastal projects, we obviously secure and lock down the barges and cranes, and also open all the travel lanes on all of our inland projects to aid in evacuations. For our bridges, we monitor those very closely with FHP. When wind speeds on the bridges reach 40 miles per hour, we coordinate closely with FHP and local law enforcement and begin shutting those bridges down to traffic for safety of the traveling public. We'll continue to monitor that as the storm progresses. We're going to continue staging resources nearby for post-storm bridge inspections. This is a priority for us, especially for our coastal bridges. We'll start there. We deploy resources immediately after the storm, and it's safe to do so in order to inspect those bridges, make sure they're safe for passage, prepare any repairs that are needed to get them open for the life safety mission, and also getting supplies in and out. The staging of resources for post-storm events in terms of roadway clearance and supporting the life safety mission is currently ongoing, and we're also coordinating very closely with our utility partners to aid in the power restoration after the storm makes impact. We're going to continue close coordination with FHP, Georgia DOT, Florida DEP, and U.S. Coast Guard on additional needed actions. All of our ports, our seaports, currently have adequate fuel supplies. They're well positioned to quickly reinstate operations following the storm and keep fuel supplies moving. The seaports in the cone of influence have begun suspending operations in terms of sea traffic and staging appropriate measures to safely restore operations as soon as the storm passes through. We're also coordinating very closely with our airports, and for airport closure information, you should contact your local airports. We are staffing traffic management centers across the state 24/7. We're closely monitoring traffic flows on all of our major facilities to aid in evacuations. We have brought on additional resources for road rangers and motorist aid assistance in case motorists need help as they're evacuating. We'll continue to watch that traffic. As the Governor mentioned, we do have the ability to utilize the shoulder for vehicular traffic if it is needed during evacuations. We coordinate that decision very closely with FHP. As soon as travel speeds get below 40 miles per hour, we typically are able to do that, and we've deployed signs and we'll have personnel all along those corridors to help aid motorists in knowing how to navigate that. We have successfully deployed this in the past, and so it works very well. So we'll continue to watch that, and as we get closer, we'll watch the traffic. Currently, we're seeing anywhere from 30 to 40% increases over normal on our major interstate facilities like I-75 and I-4. We have a 511 travel information system. Please visit fl511.com for information, or you can download the app on both Apple and Android devices. Again, thank you, and thank you, Governor, for your leadership.
Okay, and what Jared will do, these bridges, as was mentioned by Ed, they will, once there's a certain wind, they will be closed because they're not safe. The storm will come through. In the aftermath, those bridges will be reopened, but only after they've been inspected to ensure that they didn't suffer significant damage. We want to make sure that the bridges are safe. So Jared will have people ready to go, Army Corps, and the goal is that once it passes, get in, look at the bridges, make sure that they're safe, and then give the A-OK for people to be able to get back on there and get back to their homes. So you have time today to make the arrangements that you need to make. Listen to the call. If they mention the Zone B, that's not something that's taken lightly. That's something that is looking at the latest weather information that was a lot different than maybe 48 hours ago, and identifying potential vulnerable locations within the county here. And I know they're doing this in other counties with their local EM directors. And so this is going to be a significant storm. You're going to have massive, massive storm surge, a little bit different than when Charlie was supposed to go to Tampa back in 2004 and then went further south. That had a lot of wind, and this had a lot of wind too, but it did not kick up the same level of storm surge that this is anticipating doing, nor did it produce the level of flooding that this is anticipated doing. So protect yourself, take precautions. We'll have support coming in as soon as it passes. Want to help everybody get back on their feet as soon as possible. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
We've been, obviously covering preparation, speaking with a lot of our new Floridians who I think are taking this storm seriously. But I'm a Floridian, know a lot of Floridians, of course, who've been here for a long time, and who historically have not left when they've been told to evacuate. Can you speak directly to those folks who plan on doing that this time around?
Well, I think it depends on your location. I think that when you're in these Zone A's, when you have a potential historic storm surge coming, you are taking a major, major risk. I mean, that's just the reality. And so, as Kevin said earlier today, if you evacuate out of one of those zones, Zone A, and you get to higher ground in a safe structure, the one thing we say, you're not going to die. If you're in harm's way, you're really taking a risk. Now, there are definitely going to be people in this county and in other counties around here who are not in a Zone A or Zone B situation. Maybe they are on higher ground, they have perfectly safe structures, and they make those decisions that's best for them to kind of hunker down, and that's fine. But when you're in those really low-lying areas, given what the storm's going to do, you are absolutely taking a risk. And regardless, I think, of what people do in terms of staying or evacuating, just be prepared that you will lose power, and that will happen, and it's not going to come back on immediately. There's going to be a storm. If it's crawling very slowly throughout this county and in this part of the state, that's going to be dumping an inordinate amount of rain. It's going to be difficult for anybody to get in immediately. You're going to have to clear roads. You're going to have to do a lot. So just prepare for that, and just understand that you are going to have interruptions in power. Understand you will have interruptions in fuel at some point. Now, Kevin's team, working with the utilities and everybody, the FDOT, I mean, the goal is going to be clear the roads, get the linemen in there, do what you need to do for fuel. Of course, that's going to be all hands on deck, but there is going to absolutely, with a storm of this magnitude, going to be a time when you're going to have to do that. So for the new Floridians, some are in this for the first time and are really heeding, which is great. Others may not necessarily know what to expect, and so if you are here when it passes, just understand, with no power, it gets really hot and nasty. I mean, it's not necessarily going to be great to be sitting around. That's just par for the course when you deal with these things. So just make sure you're prepared for that. Yes.
Secretary Perdue, are you considering making any roads one way? And then my other question is, what are you doing to ensure that gas supply continues?
Yeah, sure. So, no, we've done a lot of studies over the years and found that using the shoulder for those evacuations is really effective. We don't want to one-way facilities because we need the other side of the facility for the life safety mission and getting supplies in and out. And so we found that works really well. And as I mentioned, fuel supplies are topped off at all of our major ports, and so right now fuel levels are looking good. I mean, there's lines at gas stations, but right now fuel levels are looking good.
And the decision, as Jared mentioned earlier, to use the shoulder is going to be dependent on when traffic slows to a certain amount. And we have not yet seen it consistently be below 40 miles an hour. And really, you're looking at I-75 and I-4 as the two major interstates where that would be an issue. Also, Kevin, the state, we have fuel contracts in place to bring it in from other places. And so, he's working on that. And that may not be needed, but if it is, we want to make sure that we're able to get fuel going as quickly as possible.
If this ends up being, the worst case scenario that nobody wants to see. Do you feel confident that the state is ready for the response after the fact with the storm surge, the flooding, the power, all these different things, because this could be historic?
So the bad thing about, there's many great things about Florida. One of the negatives is that you have risk of natural disasters and hurricanes, and that's just always been true throughout our state's history. The good part about that is because everyone knows it's a risk, we have some of the people that respond to these that are the best in the business. And it's not just at the state level. We obviously have good people there, but you have people in these counties who've been doing this for a long time. And so they've seen a lot, and they've seen what works, what doesn't. What I can tell you is we've marshaled all the resources available. When counties have asked, we're fulfilling those requests. We want to make sure that people have what they need to be able to get through this. Now, once the storm passes, of course, immediately, if anyone needs to be rescued, that's why we have the National Guard. That's why we have Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission with their boats and their aircraft. That's why we have USAR teams that are going to be ready. So those are really major assets to help people who may be in harm's way. Once that's taken care of, the resumption of services is going to be priority. That's why you have 30,000 linemen amongst all these different utility companies that are staged and ready to go, because most people will get through this with minimal damage to themselves or their property, but if they can get back to normal as quickly as possible, that makes helping everything else so much easier. So there's going to be a priority on doing that, and as Kevin mentioned before, with the fuel and the communications, all of that is very, very important to get everybody back on their feet. Now, when you're talking about storm surge of this nature, you're talking about the amount of water that may get dumped. You're going to have damage from the flooding. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. That could be residential damage. That could be commercial damage. Of course, when you have a strong hurricane making landfall, you're going to have a lot of trees that are going to be knocked over. That's going to cause damage. I think if you look, a lot of Florida homes are built to withstand a Category 3 hurricane or more, but what ends up happening is a tree falls on, well, that's damage that's hard to stop at that point. And I think you're going to see it continue to go through the state of Florida potentially on this track, maybe not at hurricane strength winds, but you're going to have a lot of tropical storm force winds that are going to cause damage. It's going to create problems with vegetation. It's going to create problems with trees. So as all these things go, there are some tracks that are better than others. Clearly, we wanted this to just go out in the Gulf and not impact Florida at all. Now you're in a situation where it's impacting southwest part of our state, but it's likely to continue to go, maybe not at hurricane strength, but certainly a major, major storm system, potentially moving all the way through the interior of our state out into the Atlantic Ocean. So there's going to be a lot to do. And I'm proud of everybody at Florida Department of Emergency Management who's been up this. We declared a state of emergency last week when it wasn't even a formed system, because we saw the potential that this could be something that would have a major impact on the state of Florida. Okay, we will continue to be providing updates. Make sure you're finishing your preparations. Make sure you're doing what you need to do to be safe. You're not going to get a mulligan on this one, and so it's better to over-prepare and better to take actions to be safe than wish you had done more after the fact. Thanks.